Boeing whistleblower was found dead in an apparent suicide in a hotel parking lot. John Barnett was a quality manager for Boeing for 32 years, and he was giving a series of interviews where he was exposing Boeing for violating safety regulations for profit. One of the things that John Barnett exposed is how Boeing would take defective parts and then recycle them on new planes in order to prevent production delays and reduce production costs. So essentially, Boeing was building planes out of trash. Ever since he retired in 2017, John Barnett has been trying to get his safety concerns out there. So the corporate media and the police would have us believe right when his story is about to get out there, right when Boeing is about to be held accountable, now that his testimony is more important than ever, that's when he commits suicide? Why wouldn't he wait until after the interviews are done instead of committing suicide in the middle of the case? The police investigating this story are apparently the least curious motherfuckers ever. They said he killed himself in a hotel parking lot. Why not kill yourself in the hotel? It may be just me, but a hotel parking lot seems like a place you would die if you are being targeted by an assassin, especially an assassin who knows exactly where you are staying. And I'm not kidding here. We need the police to come out and explain in great detail how they knew that this was a self-inflicted wound. Because this story is obviously fucking shady. But I need you to understand, the criminals in our ruling class understands this. These stories are meant to send a chilling message to future whistleblowers that they can and they will kill you. They will get away with it, and then they will slander your name by saying you committed suicide. What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome back. We got another banger in store for you. As always, welcome to Nick at Night. The capitalist class, as I've been telling you guys, are filled with gangsters and murderers. Like, people think like the mob or any of these gangsters have anything on the capitalist class. Our boy was exposing how Boeing was making shortcuts on safety regulations in order to maximize profits. And we watched them get Jeffrey Epstein in real time. Imagine what they would say if this was a headline in any other country, where someone who was blowing the whistle on powerful oligarchs all of a sudden is found dead. And they tell you this bullshit, like I said in the video, not so people can believe it. And so it will send a message that they can kill you and they can make whatever bullshit up that they want and people will believe it. Like when people go to protest, when people talk about protesting the establishment, there's always this implication that, hey man, you better be careful because the ruling class in this country, they will kill your ass. Like when people see my politics in real life, they like, man, Nick, you gotta be careful because they might kill your ass. That's what everyone says. Everyone knows it. We live in a culture where everyone knows that if you go too far, you'll be murdered by the ruling class. But they think they have the moral high ground over other countries. They want you to think that Putin is a mastermind assassin. Like, imagine if this headline was, if this happened in Russia. I can only imagine the headline and situation. Like, if this was like Russia, they would say Putin had John Barnett silenced because he was about to expose the corrupt inner circle. And if it was Russia and it was reporting on this story like the way America report on stuff that happened in Russia, let's since it's so it make more sense. Like Russia media, if they was imitating the United States media, they would say Joe Biden silenced, had John Barnett killed because he was set to expose his corrupt inner cabal. That's what they say about Putin whenever anyone dies in Russia. Oh, this oligarch died because Putin had him killed. Imagine this happened in China. Imagine this happening anywhere else, that any of these countries that we are convinced are authoritarian. I found this meme looking for something else. Our boy K, boy, he be dropping bangers. This is the kind of shit they would say about North Korea. In the United States, corporations can have you killed with impunity if you reveal their transgressions. I don't know if you guys know who this is. Yeonmi Park. She's the famous North Korean propagandist that said that people in North Korea are forced to push trains by hand. And when she said that, everyone was like, hey, what? You guys heard my DPRK North Korea rants by now. One of the reasons why people believe a lot of stupid bullshit about North Korea is because the CIA and the establishment pays these traitors to their people. They make them famous, they make them wealthy in order to spread lies about their country. You see a lot of the Chinese people on Fox News doing the same thing. The Chinese traitors that go in front of white people and tell them that their enemy are the worst thing that they ever seen. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm Chinese. I'm here to tell you that you're right about my people. That's what she does. I am for North Korea. I'm here to tell you that you're right about my people. They always ignore the foreign exchange students that live in China and abroad that tells a different story. They always ignore the journalists from other countries, international journalists who go to the DPRK and completely rebuke their bullshit. But they pay these influencers. That's why you believe the stuff you believe about North Korea. I'm glad, because ever since I've been going on these North Korea rants, I had a lot of people, especially like people more on the right, that like, man, Nick, I had no idea about that stuff. Which is why RBN community is based. I didn't know how you guys would handle this, because it's one of the things that is like people investigated the COVID narrative. You know what I mean? People were very curious about that. But North Korea is one of the things that a lot of people still not curious about. Like a lot of people was radicalized because of the COVID narrative. Because I can't believe they lied to us about something like this. The DPRK was one of those moments for me. Like people have no idea how much they was lied to about by North Korea because of people like her. I wonder if I can find Yeonmi Park trains. I wasn't. This is not a segment, but bro, this shit lives rent free in my mind because this was not even planned. But I have to show you guys this shit. This is the shit that they tell you with a straight face about North Korea, and the majority of white Americans believe it, to the point where you have 40% of Americans who believe we should carpet bomb North Korea because they care about the Korean people that much. So off topic, but I have to show you guys this because you guys know I like to go on all these random rants about North Korea, because I want to deprogram people's mind about that country. So listen to this.
Once a month. And like here it would take like 1 hour to go the other place. In order to take a month at least to go, because there's no electricity. And sometimes people have to push the train.
They have to push the train.
Yeah.
Now do you guys begin to, and I'm taking pride in the fact that RBN, we're leading the way on this, while other channels, they just bow to the North Korean narrative. You know how they was questioning the COVID narrative? A lot of these same channels fucking go along with the North Korean narrative, the narrative that North Koreans are pushing trains by hand. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm the kind of motherfucker that if someone told me a story that absurd, I question everything that they say. Which this Yeonmi character is a notorious liar. Absolutely notorious liar. And I'm gonna show you this tweet. Big shout out to my friend Didi. You guys see Didi in the chat. Let me retweet this. I'm glad you sent me to this. I was texting her begging her to send this. Kadidi, if you guys see her in the chat, but she's one of the people on Twitter that exposed DPRK propaganda. And I'm gonna share this because it's one of the funny. A lot of people ask me like, "How do you know about this about North Korea?" Follow these accounts that exposes the lies about the DPRK, and Forgivenchi was one of those accounts that have done that. Now look at this. This shows you guys how propagandized Americans are. Thank you. I saw Didi was watching this, so I was like, "Bro, send me this tweet." To show you guys how propagandized they are in North Korea. You guys know in North Korea, they provide homes to everybody. You know that authoritarian country that everyone wants you to be afraid of, and they provide housing to their people. As we have Skid Row here, as Robbie in my debate with the Hill, my one and only appearance on the Hill, was trying to argue to me about these authoritarian countries. And we live in a country that is so authoritarian that if the capitalist class turns on you and bankrupt you, you will go homeless. So this is a post where someone explained that there's no homeless people in North Korea. So you want to know how brainwashed Americans are? This shit is a fucking classic. This is a classic to show you guys how propagandized Americans are. So when faced with the fact that North Korea provide homes to their own people, you want to know what Americans say? They don't even have the freedom to be homeless. The freedom to be homeless. That's the kind of shit that they say in America. Yeah, you caught me red-handed. I don't believe you should have the freedom to be homeless. You caught me. I guess I'm an authoritarian communist. I'm a rank authoritarian communist because I don't think people should have the freedom to go homeless. This image has been circulated for years by anti-imperialists. This shit was a classic. Look at Caitlin here. Caitlin says, I was homeless. So this is someone whose mind is completely colonized. I was homeless and I agree with this. I got another job after I was laid off. Took 6 months to get off the street, but at least I had a choice. Bro, people will legitimately tell me, they will legitimately tell you with a straight face that North Koreans are the most propagandized country in the world. As you have Americans praising their freedom to go homeless and live on the street for 6 months because their employer has the right to lay them off. You guys see how capitalism completely destroys the mind? Why is RBN? Ask yourself the question. Why is RBN the only channel that is willing to broach these very uncomfortable topics? Every other channel, even those I like, repeat the bullshit about North Korea. Ask yourself why that is. And then whenever people go to North Korea and they expose the propaganda, they're like, oh, well, they're just hiding what's really going on in North Korea. You mean like how America hides Skid Row? Ah, yeah. Nick in his nanny state. Yep. I don't believe people try to freedom to go homeless. That's where your freedom amounts to in this country. So big shout out to Didi. She's the one who tweeted this. You guys see her in the comments every once in a while. If you guys want to know, Didi is one of my sources because she's have done a lot of research, a lot of exposing of this propaganda. So if you was propaganda, let's get back to the story because you guys know I love me a good rant exposing imperialist propaganda. If this was North Korea or Russia, they would say Kim Jong-un got this whistleblower killed because he was about to expose the corruption of his cabal. Now let's get to the corruption that was exposed. I want to show you guys, just in case you haven't seen this. In the hotspot video, I explained how, like, this guy, ever since 2017, have been revealing these and being a whistleblower, exposing Boeing's bullshit. And in my hotspot video about this, I explained how Boeing would take trash, recycled and defective parts, and they would put them on planes in order to reduce production cost in order to prevent production delays, you know, for profit. But at the same time, people don't understand the problem with the profit incentive, though.
One, this is not a 737 problem; it's a Boeing problem. And I know the FAA's gone in and they've done due diligence and inspections to assure that the door plugs of the 737 are installed properly and the fasteners are stored properly. But my concern is, what's the rest of the airplane? What's the rest of the condition of the airplane? And the reason my concern for that is, back in 2012, Boeing started removing inspection operations off their jobs. So it left the mechanics to buy off their own work. So what we're seeing with the door plug blowout is what I've seen with the rest of the airplane, as far as jobs not being completed properly, inspection steps being removed, issues being ignored. My concerns are with the 737 and the 787, because those programs have really embraced the theory that quality is overhead and non-value added. So those two programs have really put a strong effort into removing quality from the process. When I first started working at Charleston, I was in charge with pushing back defects to our suppliers. And what that meant was I'd take a group of inspectors and actually go to the supplier and inspect their product before they sent it in. Well, I'd taken a team of 4 inspectors to Spirit Aerosystems to inspect the 41 section before they sent it to Charleston. And we found 300 defects. Some of them were significant that needed engineering intervention. When I returned to Charleston, my senior manager told me that we had found too many defects and he was going to take the next trip. So the next trip he went on, he took 2 of my inspectors. And when they got back, they were given accolades for only finding 50 defects. So I pulled that inspector aside and I said, did Spirit really clean up their act that quick? That don't sound right. And she was mad. She said, no. Said the 2 inspectors were given 2 hours to inspect the whole 41 section and they were kicked off the airplane.
So he was explaining the culture in Boeing that forces inspectors to give passing grades so it doesn't affect Boeing's profit line. And there's a very infamous segment that John Oliver did like a month ago talking about Boeing, and I find it very adorable because I'm a communist with a big C. I am an anti-capitalist. It's very interesting watching capitalists talk about this story. You know, people who don't read theory, that people have no idea why what's going on is going on. What do you guys think what happens under a system where there's pressure to have infinite growth? You know, the impossible to reach standard? When you have infinite growth, you need to find ways to make profit. You make profit through exploiting your workers, passing prices onto consumers. But in this case, they get government contracts. And so there's no necessarily any consumers to pass price onto. There's the number one thing that they can do in order to increase profit is to cut corners on safety regulations. This is predictable, and it is always bound to happen. When you have corporations like Boeing who make massive profits, but the executives are forced to find a way to make more, where do you guys think the profit comes from? Do people know what the word infinite means? It's something that you cannot attain. So in this pursuit of infinite growth and infinite profit, pursuing a profit, you of course will lead to cutting corners on safety regulations. Of course you will save money on parts in the long term in order to increase profits. This is the problem with capitalism and having a central planning model that is anarchy, because Boeing, in their service of making planes, is so important. They're one of 2 major operating airplane developers. So they are considered too big to fail. And what I truly believe in this, is what makes me a communist, a socialist, is that if you are someone that is too big to fail, you should not exist. If you are too big to fail, that is an industry that should not be privatized. So the people who worry that communists are coming after your things, oh my God, you don't believe in private property? We don't give a fuck about your TV. We don't give a fuck about your car. What we are saying is you're not allowed to own airlines and make airplanes. You're not allowed to own an oil rig. You're not allowed to own a hospital. There are certain things that are 100% off the table, and every other functioning society realized this. So these companies are allowed to do whatever they want because they are too big to fail. And in this situation, they become a government. So people are like, oh, I don't want big government. What the difference between a giant organization that you can hold accountable and an organization like Boeing that is quote unquote too big to fail to the point where they're doing their own regulations? You know what governments do? I'm gonna show you guys this. This show you guys how it's even more absurd. The idea that this guy killed himself. As I was playing my hotspot video, this guy retired in 2017, and he's been wanting to share his story for years now. And they finally have this case. He's given his testimony. He's giving over and providing evidence for this legal case. He did one interview, and he has a second interview scheduled where he's about to expose Boeing, something that he's been trying to do for 7 years now. And at the climax of this project that he's been working on, exposing these criminals in Boeing because he cares about safety, he then kills himself right as the bright lights are shining, right when it's game time, when during the most important part of this whole process. That's when John decides to kill himself. Do anyone believe this? If you believe this, you are the biggest rube in the world. Just admit that you are willingly propagandized, that you tell yourself stories that make you feel better so you can sleep at night like a child. Like you're a grown-ass adult that believes that Santa is real. You tell yourself that Santa is real so you can go about life in a comfortable manner. Those are the people who believe that Epstein killed himself. Those are the people who believe that Barnett killed himself. Now, realizing how ridiculous and utterly absurd their story is, we have police that say, oh, we believe he was killed by a self-inflicted wound. We need police to start coming out and explaining their methodology with this bullshit. The idea that he would kill himself in a parking lot instead of inside of his hotel, absurd. Because if you're going to kill yourself, why not do it in your hotel? So you tell me that this guy is arriving for whenever his previous destination was, and he's so sad he's willing to kill himself, and he's staying strong. He's staying strong. He's very sad, apparently. This is what they want us to believe. He's very sad. He's staying strong. He's holding on by a thread. But as he's pulling into the parking lot of his hotel, he finally snaps. He can't even take it upon himself to take a few more steps to reach in his hotel because he's so fed up. So instead of killing himself in his hotel, he killed himself in the parking lot because he's so fed up with life. That's what they will have you believe if you are a child. You want to know if you are someone who was killed by an assassin, you want to know where you're most likely going to die at if you're being killed by an assassin? A hotel parking lot, for example. You know, an assassin who has an employer who has massive amount of resources, who are able to track down the hotel in which you're staying at. They know where you're staying at because in this story, in fact, one of the reasons why they found the guy is because after he didn't appear for his second interview, because John was on his way to his second interview where he was going to lay out all the horrible stuff that Boeing has done. So because he didn't show up to this interview, you had them reach out to his hotel. You had the lawyers, had the people involved in the case. They reached out to his hotel. So people knew where he was at. Boeing knows where he's at. So you provide that information to assassin. So if you're an assassin and you have a contract on someone, wouldn't you wait outside the hotel that they are giving you information that he's staying at? So if you're an assassin, the best chance you have to kill this person is when they arrive back to the hotel from the hotel parking lot on the way to the room. And that is exactly what happened. So now, realizing that this story makes no sense at face value, and even the biggest government simps, even the biggest sweet summer children are raising their eyebrows at this, they have to make a suicide note, my friends. You can't make this shit up, bro. You can't make this shit. Y'all had this on the screen for a while. You guys see this? Just in, a suicide note was allegedly found next to the Boeing whistleblower, John Barnett, who was found dead in his truck with a gun in his hand. So what they will have us believe is this motherfucker was in his truck, breaking down, about ready to take his life. Instead of going to a place where it would be comfortable to write and type out this suicide letter, he writes it in a truck instead of writing it in the hotel. Can someone explain why someone would do that if you was to believe the story at face value? Why would you do that? Isn't it more comfortable to sit down in a hotel to write out a suicide note instead of being crunched up? You got to write on your steering wheel. You tell me this guy is so fucking sad out of nowhere that he can't even be rational enough to realize that writing out a suicide note is more comfortable and more efficient to do in a hotel room. No, what they will have you believe he did in his truck. Maybe he came somewhere. Maybe he left his hotel, went somewhere to write his suicide note, because we know that's what suicide people do. He left his hotel to write a suicide note instead of writing a suicide note in his hotel. How does that make sense? Let me continue. He was found dead in his truck with a gun in his hand. A hotel staff member found Barnett after someone contacted the hotel for a wellness check on him. Barnett had his right finger remaining on the trigger with a gunshot wound near his right temple, according to a police report. According to the least curious motherfuckers on the face of this planet. And there's no accountability for police, but we need people to start questioning these police reports. Why aren't the police forced to come out and explain their methodology and what made them believe that this is a gunshot wound? Oh yeah, great comment, Joseph. I see some comments sometimes. No one heard a loud pop. I haven't heard any reports of anyone hearing a gunshot. What you think people would hear? They didn't know he was dead until people contacted the hotel and they started looking for him. If he shot himself, wouldn't it be a loud noise and people like, wait, what the fuck? And then they will discover someone who shot themselves? Anyway. If you was an assassin, if you got a contract to kill someone, you would think that Boeing would tell them, hey man, make it look like an accident. And if you want it to look like an accident, you know what you do? You put the gun in the person's hand. Apparently, these cops are so uncurious, they're not even considering that possibility. No camera footage. And his right pointer perfectly on the gun. And then he had this white piece of paper that closely resembled a note that was on the passenger seat next to him. The contents of the note has not been released. How fucking convenient. This very important note, the suicide note. You would think that people would want to know what was said in the suicide note. Nope, we're not curious. We're deeply serious police officers that's surely here to protect the people instead of serving the capitalist class. Surely that's why we're here, and that's why America believes we're here for. Now, this is the most important part of this. Let's say you're a sweet summer child. You don't believe my fucking radical ass. Oh, Nick, you're a fucking communist. Fuck you. What the fuck do you know? I believe Boeing. Boeing and these companies, they would never have these people killed. I believe the system. I am a child. This is what Barnett's lawyers say. There was no indication Barnett would take his life. No indication. We don't need indication. We need critical thinking. This guy who's been trying to release his story for 7 years, when you read his story, after he retired, he immediately went to work as a Boeing whistleblower. So this motherfucker was trying to get his story out for 7 years. And he killed himself right when his story was getting out there, right as people were listening to him. That does not pass the common sense test, and the ruling class knows it. They know it doesn't pass the common sense test. That's why they tell you it, because it meant to send a chilling message to anyone who plans to be a whistleblower in the future that they will kill you, and they will get away with it. The police will go along with it. The police will say you committed suicide. It's a self-inflicted wound. Guys, this is the point. The point is not to be believable. The people who gonna believe this story no matter what, the people who are obedient, they're not the people who this message is intended for. This message is intended for people like us who do have the critical thinking skills to realize these capitalist thugs are killing people who are blowing the whistle on them. So now if you're someone who may be thinking about blowing the whistle on Boeing, you're thinking about John Barnett and whether that story is real or not. So now if you're a whistleblower, you're less likely to come out. Why? Because the police was working with Boeing and did the bidding for them and saying that this guy killed himself. So now the message is out there that, man, the police is in their pocket, the media is in their pocket, they're not going to ask the question. You had to go to RBN, a random independent media channel, to get people asking questions about your death. And not only that, my friends, they're going to smear you. They're going to say you are mentally unhealthy. They're going to say you committed suicide. They're going to dishonor you in death that way. Not only are they going to lie on you, they're going to smear you in death. They're not even going to give you an honorable death. They're going to tell you, your entire family, that you killed yourself. You don't value your family. You don't value your life. You're mentally deranged. And that's also why the implication is, this is why we can't take this guy seriously, because he's blowing the whistle on Boeing because he's just depressed. Oh, look at the depressed baby blowing the whistle on Boeing. This is extremely deliberate, and I need people to understand this. I feel like a lot of people I have been watching covering this story is missing this. They don't expect you to believe the story. They are sending a message.